Well, Colnago have just released their brand new C68, which is their line of C bikes which are made in Italy, and they're generally made with a lug and tube construction. And these models, the C series, are close to my heart because I actually owned a C60, and that was a beautifully finished bike. It rode really nice, but that was in the past. And are these new bikes really have the same tradition as they do the older bikes with the flutes and the lug construction? And you could see all the lugs. They showed it as a feature on the bike. Now, if you want to talk about emotion and tradition, GCN did a fantastic video with some beautiful footage where they talk about that sort of stuff. But here on Waynos Fotos, I've owned a C-Series bike, and we're going to talk a little bit more practical about how much these things are worth. Are they really worth buying today compared to other bikes with the features they're offering? So let's roll an intro and let's get into it. Now, the first thing about the C-Series is they're made in Italy, unlike the V-Series. And what we need to realise, from my understanding, is yes, the bikes are assembled in Italy and painted in Italy, but the carbon is from the Far East. So they get the bits made in the Far East, then they ship them to Italy. They're nice pieces which are basically like Lego, are put together and glued and put in a frame and adjusted so the bike geometry is all correct, and then they're heat cured, and then the bike is in one piece. So when they say made in Italy, yes, it's assembled in Italy, but the carbon is from the Far East. That's as far as I'm aware, and when I bought the C60, that was the case. I don't know if that's still the case, but there may be big changes in Colnago because, as we're aware, we know the ownership has changed in recent times. Well, as we've seen in the Pro Peloton, Colnago like to promote the rim brake bike, and we've seen the pros who are riding Colnago bikes riding rim brake bikes in certain sections of the races, and Colnago are continuing this tradition. So we can get the bike in rim brake, even though right at this moment, at a release date, it's not available, it will be coming available. And the other thing that they've added to the lineup is an all-road or a gravel bike, and this bike is to expand their manufacturing. And I think that this is Colnago's making a shift to bring more of their bikes from the Far East back to Europe and be made in Italy. There is a little bit of a trend to do that, and the European government is encouraging people or manufacturers to make stuff back in Europe. Or should I say there's actually penalties if you don't. So I will actually see this as part of a business move to bring more of the bikes to be made in Europe or in Italy. Now, the next big point that Colnago are offering, which is kind of an extension of what they've offered in the past, where they have an NFT and some blockchain coding, and this is attached to the bike. And the reason why they're doing this is because it identifies that, at least the frame, with the owner, and that's encrypted, so no one can change that. So if your bike's lost and you tell the police, then there's a good chance that they might be able to recover it. If they actually find the thieves that have it in their possession, it'll be able to be identified back to you very, very easily. It also then has that extra added feel that, hey, look, I have been encrypted as the owner, and it's just that, even if I sell it, then it's encrypted to a new owner, and that kind of might help with the resale value because you're buying a Colnago and it's allocated to you as a person. So that may actually have some value, but when it comes to security, I'll talk about that in conclusion because I think that there's better things that bike manufacturers can do to ensure bike security when we're spending such a significant amount of money, almost equal to a car price, on what they could do to secure that vehicle. Now, the other thing that Colnago have moved into is white glove delivery. Now, to be real, Ventia really pioneered this, where they come and deliver the bike to your house. It's actually handed to you. It's set up in your driveway, and you get like a bike rolled out of a van into your garage, completely ready to ride and ready to go in your configuration, adjusted to you. And I think it's actually a pretty good model, and we've seen Specialized and now copying that, and now we've got Colnago doing it, and they're calling it this white glove delivery. But there is a premium price to be paid if you want that, and I think that's actually a pretty good thing that the manufacturers are doing. Unfortunately, it does cut out the bricks and mortar people who are selling these bikes, which I think is a bit unfortunate, because when you take your bike back to your dealer, they kind of go, oh, what's this you've got? And you go, oh, it's a Colnago, I got the white glove chair. Oh, okay. And they have to support it. But really, they didn't get any benefit from the sale, although now they have to support the product. So I don't know how that's going to work behind the scenes for people who are bike dealers and they need to take responsibility for that piece of equipment into the future to maintain it. Now, the next thing that Colnago are offering, which is a little bit new, well, not new in the bike industry, but new to the C series, is a fully integrated handlebar stem system. Now, this I think is more practical for the full out race bikes like the V3R, where you've got younger people or people are competing and they can get into more extreme positions, and the handlebar and the lightness of the handlebar is critical. But generally, the people who buy the C series are enthusiasts, and probably people who are not so young, and they need to be able to adjust their bike a little bit more for comfort when I'm riding. And it might sound great that they've got 16 variations, but when you look at handlebar width and stem length, and the action of then it being put up and down in regards to the frame, it becomes significantly complicated to set your reach and everything perfectly, because you haven't got that adjustment where you can tilt the handlebars, you can adjust the stem and have a different degree stem. That's all set, and you have to make sure the length is correct. And you might not be able to get that perfect stem because they're only offering 16 combinations. And as I said, that sounds a lot, but when you actually start going through the different widths and the different stem lengths, 16 is actually not really that many. But I can understand what Colnago are doing, because the more they make, the more molds they need, the more cost that becomes up to initiate making that type of stem system. So that's something that I think is not a great idea. That's what they're offering. Some people may like that, but I think for this type of bike, that's more an enthusiast bike. It's more of a tradition bike because it's related to the C, which is Colnago, and the age of Ernest Colnago. I think that allowing a bit more adjustability on the bike for people who maybe are not so young would have been a better idea. They could have still had some sort of semi-aero type integrated handlebar system, but had it so the handlebar and stem can be changed individually. Is that they've changed the bottom bracket. Now, the bottom bracket used to be a kind of a proprietary bottom bracket that kind of fitted with other bottom brackets. It had like an aluminium insert that screwed into the frame, and that, I believe, was pretty good because it had aluminium machine surfaces that you could use to fit your bottom bracket. Now they've gone to the T47 system, so it's aligned with a lot of other brands. So now that's making that a very, very common bottom bracket. You may like that, you may not like that, but that is one of the major things that has changed. So if you're looking at buying these bikes, you need to have a T47 bottom bracket compatible system to put in your group set of whatever brand that you like. Now, of course, there is the price. Now, when we say the word C series with the word Colnago, we generally think of a pocket emptying scenario, and these bikes are going to be extremely expensive. Now, they are not cheap, that is for sure, but when you have a look at the price, the starting price, they're around about 8,000 Aussie for my calculations. That's where they start at, depending on what else you have with them, because they're offering a change of some of the lugs to titanium, and if you want that, it's a premium price on top of the base price. And the reason why you may go for that is because it gives you some more custom adjustments in the top tubes and so forth, so the bike can be then made to specific dimensions that you may ask for from Colnago. But you probably wouldn't go for that if you just went for the normal sizing. So that is actually an extra thing that they're offering to allow the bike to be a lot more customizable if for some reason you've got a body that doesn't fit normal type of bikes, or you're exceptionally tall, exceptionally short, or you've got long legs or long arms or something like that. Colnago, if you want to pay this premium, can make the bike more adjustable and fit you better. So that is a plus because of the type of construction they're using. But when we get back to price, when you look at some of the other brands that are on the market that the frames are selling for, it really is pretty compatible to something like the S-Works, the top model, or something like Bastian Cycles, or the Specialisma, or something like that. It's in that same price ballpark. So when we say Colnago and we say C-Series, yeah, they're not cheap. Their starting price is pretty high, but the price is not that bad. And when I look at what I paid for my frame set when it was C60, and that was a long time ago now, probably at least 5 years ago, and I paid about five and a half. I got it for a good price, but they were around about 5,500 to 6,000, depending if you want a rim or disc brake. And then the price now has jumped up 2,000. So you might say that that's about 30% over 5 years. Bikes are hard to get at the moment. You're having to pay a premium price for them. It's probably not that unrealistic, that price. It's not insane. And I know GCN quoted some really high price, but you got to remember the group sets have also become a lot more expensive, and that takes the total price of the bike a lot higher. But just looking at the part that Colnago are making, which is the frame set, it probably is only looking around about a 25 to 30% increase on something like that I bought C60 some 5 or 6 years ago. So, in conclusion, the question or question mark is, should you consider this bike? Should you buy this bike if you've got the hard-earned cash burning a hole in your pocket? Well, the question is not should you buy this bike, because it's a pretty nice bike, and I'll have to say to you right now, if it's anything like the bike that I bought, the C60, the finish of the Colnagos, I think, is industry leading. The paint and the way they're finished is really top notch. As far as paint goes, I mean, people say paint jobs are good on bikes, but I would probably tend to disagree in general. I find that the finish of bikes compared to an automobile, the paint is actually okay. But when I looked at the Colnago and I bought my Colnago, I just had the frame set. I looked inside of it. I looked outside of it. The paint, the way it's been painted, and even just the finish with the drink mount bolts. There was a little symbol inside the drink mount bolts, a Colnago symbol. Comes with a little box that you open up with all the little bits and pieces in it. It's very, very well finished. The package is extremely well finished. So you're getting a really nice looking bike. But on the flip side of that, and I'll link it up the top here, Leisure Technique, Rail from Leisure Technique, did actually do a cut up of two C60s, and the quality, although was not less than ideal, it wasn't great either. It was probably middle of the road. So as far as the assembly and the gluing all the components, they were pretty average. And he actually had some problems with the C-Series where the glue joints had some problems after some age. So there is that to consider if you're looking at buying one of these bikes. But we're looking at the bike as a whole, and I've just gone through my list here. I think that the problem is with this latest bike, and the reason why I didn't like the C64 either, they're moving away from what made the C-Series that magical bike, and the magic of it was a tradition. So you could see the lugs, even though they were kind of artificial. You could see the lugs, you could see the flutes in the tubes. It had a round seat post, so you could customize the seat post, which is what I'd done. I had a black seat post and I had a gold frame, and it looked really nice. I didn't want the painted gold seat post that comes from Colnago, because, you know, if you put lights and things on it, it scratches that paintwork on the seat post. So I wanted just a plain carbon black seat post, and it looked much nicer. So when you customize the bike, You can't, because now it's got a proprietary seat post, it's got proprietary handlebars. They're limiting the ability of it to be that old-fashioned traditional bike where it's not about buying the ultimate fast bike. It's about buying something that looks beautiful, it's finished beautiful, it rides really nice, which my C60 did. I think it actually rides even a little bit better than my look. It has a beautiful neutral feel to it when you're riding, and it was a joy to ride. But when I look at this whole package, this new package, what they're charging, and okay, yeah, they're offering some sort of stuff and extra security. I think that that could be done better in the bicycle industry, and something that I think would be much better than just putting on some blockchain coding is for like the group sets to lock out. So what you do is you have like a key ring pad like you would have with a car. You press it, it locks out the group set, and it could actually lock the brakes on. I mean, okay, you can still pick it up and pinch it, but if you're at the cafe, that's what you're worried about, someone quickly grabbing it and riding off with it. But if those things were locked, it could act as a bit of a deterrent. And also the group sets could have an alarm built in, because most of the electronic group sets have power. They've got a battery, and they could have a motion sensor in them, so when you lock your gears and lock your derailleurs, it could set the motion sensor on, so if someone moves the bike, an alarm goes off. And I think those sort of initiatives would be better than putting on some sort of sticker, which is a blockchain, which is then after the fact. You have to try and go to the police and have to identify it. So I think that even though it is some step towards being able to identify the bike if it's stolen, it's kind of not that great for the price you're paying. And also, I'm really not a big fan of it just looking like a normal bike. Now they've taken out the flutes and the construction of the frame that gave it that kind of really lugged feel that made a Colnago look like Colnago C-Series, should I say, look like a Colnago C-Series. It was very easily identifiable when you walked up to it, and they've taken that away. I mean, yeah, it can still be customized, but there's no lugs anymore. And with the white glove thing, I think this is just going to be a trend that all brands are going to follow with the delivery system. And, you know, Colnago are not the first out of the blocks with this sort of idea. Ventia really pioneered it. And I think we're going to see that trending through all the different brands. But as I said, should you buy it? That's what I said at the beginning of this conclusion. And I think that the problem here is for that sort of money, there's a lot of really nice bikes on the market. And if I had this much money to spend on a frame, I probably would be considering something like Bastion Cycles. They are really, those bikes are really beautifully finished. Even though the Colnago is a nice bike and finished, the Bastion Cycles bikes are, the customization and everything you can do with them and personalize them is incredible. The only downside with the Bastion Cycles is you cannot have a mechanical rim brake bike. You can only have a electric rim brake bike. They do not put any of the fitments in there to run the cables. So that then pushes the price, the total price of the bike up higher, because you can't buy a mechanical group set that's much cheaper. Like for instance, you can't put a Chorus or like a 105 on one of their frames if you wanted to keep the price of the bike down. It just won't fit. So that is something that I'm not sure about the Colnago, if it can fit mechanical rim brake group sets, if it's got those. I haven't heard any of the reviews mentioning that. But if that also is not available, that would be a little bit disappointment for me, because if I was buying a really nice frame, I'm not really interested in buying the really top group sets. I think that the lower price group sets, okay, they had a little bit more weight, but they work just the same. And you've got just as nice a bike to ride. Well, anyway, guys, leave your comments down below. What do you think of this new Colnago C68? Do you think it's offering enough of a difference from the other brands to identify it as the Colnago traditional C-Series bike? Or do you think it's become pretty much the same as all the other brands? And anyway, guys, if you haven't subscribed and you're watching this and you like this sort of content, remember to subscribe down below. And also smash that like button, because it's really good for the algorithm. And I will see you next vid. Cheers.